And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Broadcast Network, Simul TV, iTunes, iHeart, and a whole bunch of other platforms, networks, and stations around the world. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And if you would like to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And on Simul TV, Channel 21, the X Zone TV channel, I'm holding my breath because I know some of you are just scribbling to the next page. Here you go. simultv.com. Exonation, it's always great for me to speak to a fellow Canadian. I would say 95% of all our guests are from the United States and other parts of the world. So when I have the pleasure of talking to a fellow Canadian, I thoroughly enjoy it. And our guest this hour is Paul Busch, and he's in Vancouver, British Columbia. The name of his paranormal group is Cornerstone Supernatural.com. And Paul, welcome to the X Zone.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
Like I was saying to you before we went on air, it's great having a fellow Canadian here with us. And Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in trying to make sense of what you and I call normal, and yet so many other people call paranormal or supernatural.
Well, I've been involved in the paranormal for a while. It was, for me, it began in Saskatchewan, of all places, and I fell in love with some of the paranormal there and some of the stories I heard and some of the locations. And when I moved out here about 23 years ago, my wife and I was always interested in what was happening in here. There's a lot of historical places here as well. Mm-hmm. We decided to start a group a few years ago and bring in some different members from different other groups and look at what was weird, what was strange, what was paranormal out there. And that made it very interesting because, again, it was a hobby for us, but we wanted to take a look at it, find out what type of stories were out there, what type of historical buildings we could get into, and let's take it from there.
How significant is history when it comes to the supernatural or the paranormal?
I think it's extremely important for a number of reasons. Historical locations tend to be
old.
What they are. They're old.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the other problem or other challenge that they have is they carry a lot of different artifacts or different things that they display. Mm-hmm. They could be given from somebody that passed. They could be given as part of that group, part of that location. And I feel, and so does a lot of the members in our group, that sometimes paranormal or ghost entities, spirits, whatever you want to call them, attach themselves to different pieces of what was important in their life. So if it was a teacup or a wagon wheel or something like that, and it's on display in the museum, then, or historical location, then it tends to be that that person or that entity likes to be around that place. And so historical locations definitely have a lot of, let's say, paranormal activity, or even if you want to call it things had happened that we can't explain.
So can we call it residual history?
I think it's a combination of both. I think both residual in the fact that they're attached to objects, but also it could be transient, where spirits are passing through and walls don't hold people or hold spirits or entities. So it could be their pathway or their way that they went many, many years ago, and it just happens there's a building there now, and they're just passing through.
Where was your first investigation for your group?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I think one of the first investigations for our group that really brought us all together, let's
Right.
put it that
Okay.
way, was the Stanley Theatre in Vancouver here. And it was, it's got its own ghosts. I mean, the Stanley Theatre is well known. It's a historical location. It has three spirits that want to be there. Two are a little bit on the comical side, and one tends to be there to watch and see that the shows that are being produced there are active and having fun. So they are definitely there. They are definitely let us know that they're there. Doors slamming, figures. We used an SLS camera, which is a structured light camera, and it caught what we call it a stick figure. And it's some of the more recent equipment that we've used. And it was quite amazing to see that and have it interact with the investigators while we were there.
Do you ever get are you ever afraid when you're doing an investigation? Do you ever get that feeling that you're being watched, you're being touched? How do you feel when you can? How was it during the first investigation of the Stanley Theatre when all this activity was happening?
For us and for me personally, you're so involved in listening and in trying to catch things on camera or video or going live by having a headset on and typing it into a digital recorder that you don't really have time to be afraid. You're so busy concentrating and making sure that you're hearing or seeing things or asking questions for somebody that's not there. A lot of questions we get is what do you do? And it's like the most common answer we give them is, well, we sit in the dark and talk to people that aren't there. And that's true. It's a favoritism that you need to try to explain that to somebody that doesn't know that. It's not like on TV shows and that where something's going to come out of the wall or something's going to be after you. It's more that like 99% of the time you're not getting any interaction or anything at that time, but it's that 1% that's really, really interesting. The other 99%, you're listening to recorders, you're going over video, you're going over photographs, you're trying to make sense of maybe something that you heard in the theater or in the historical site. So it's not all
fast paced.
Yeah, it is. It's not because if you're doing a video presentation for a show or anything like that, you're not there for 2 or 3 hours. You're there for a long amount of time. So you're tending to try to get all of your ducks in a row in a very short period of time.
So how long would the average investigation take you and your team?
It all depends on the location, but I would say we average anywhere from 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
And that's including setup of equipment. We don't want to spend customers or clients or whatever you want to call them. You don't want to spend a lot of time wasting their time. Exactly. Because you're setting up equipment, you're trying to get right to the moment. And then you don't want to go over your time allocated because they might have something else to do. So you want to be fair. You want to be, you're gracious to them for them allowing us to come into their place to look for paranormal activity.
Paul, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like more information about our guest this hour, Paul Busch, visit his website, cornerstonesupernatural.com. And Paul and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget the X-Chronicles newspaper for May-June 2019 is available with our compliments online at www.xzbn.com. xchroniclesnewspaper.com. You can go, read it online, download it, send it to your friends, get the word out there. 92 full pages, color, with some of the most leading stories in the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology today. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away. Explanation. Paul Busch is our guest this hour. www.cornerstonesupernatural.com. Paul and his team are based in Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Paul, why do you think that these spirits hang around? Why don't they go to the light? Why don't they go to heaven or wherever other spirits go? What attracts them to stay in one location, like the three spirits at the Stanley Theatre?
I think that it's sort of like if you give you another example in Vancouver, if you ever get down to the Irish Heather, it's a great bar in downtown Vancouver.
Hey, wait a sec, Paul. Any bar that has the word Irish in it has to be a great bar.
Yes, and it's a great little spot. But if that was your place, like you just said, commented that it would be it's a great place.
Yeah.
So if you had that as part of your day-to-day or your weekend, and you had a lot of fun being there, why wouldn't you be there?
Well, let's say I was married and I used to go to the pub just to be with my friends. Why wouldn't I, and if I had a happy marriage and if everything was happily ever after, why wouldn't I want to be wherever my wife was? Or, this brings up a very interesting point. Are most ghosts single?
I've never asked that question. We usually ask male, female, and try to find out if we get some sort of answer that way. That's a difficult question. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to paranormal investigation. There's no it's got to be set in stone that at 9:15 on a certain night something's going to happen. It's whether it's attached to an individual, and that happens. I mean, if you've had somebody pass in your family that you're very close to, and suddenly you get the feeling of somebody, like you've said, watching you, or that you have a feeling of that individual being around, or the smells or anything like that, it's a possibility of that. There's no real reason for it to be set on certain types of places or locations or individuals. It could be all of them.
Well, what do we know about ghosts, spirits, with all the investigations that are going on at any given time? There's thousands of groups in the United States, thousands of groups in Canada, as well as all throughout the world. What have we learned in the last 10 years when it comes to what a ghost is or what a spirit is?
I think that's still to be decided. Everybody's got their own opinion about what a ghost is. Right. Everybody's got a different reason for being in it, in being in a group or being in a paranormal investigation. I think it's up to you to decide if that's important for you or not. I don't think that there's any set standard for people or groups to say, this is the reason why we have these events or we have these situations happening. I don't think that that's really all part of it. I think it's up to the individuals. It's just like going into an investigation. If you've had a bad day and you've got a group of 6 people going into an investigation, or let's reverse that. Say you're going into a meeting. One person has had a really bad day. You go into that meeting takes forever.
Yeah.
If you go in with everybody's had a great day, everybody's got some positive attitude, you go into that meeting, wow, it really wasn't a meeting. It was a great time. We went on, boss was great, yada, yada. It is exactly the same of going into an investigation. If you're positive, if you're feeling good about it, and your group is good about it, you're going to have some good experiences. if you have some negativity in that, or you've had somebody that's had that bad day as part of your investigation team, you're not going to get as much activity or communication as you would want. I think that's true.
Then let me ask you this, Paul. What is the ultimate goal of investigating the supernatural? What are people hoping to find? Because, when you do an investigation, you're looking for evidence to either, I know when I was a cop, to either arrest or clear. What is the purpose of a paranormal investigation then?
We get called into places, and or we get referred to places for paranormal investigations to find out what is there.
I see.
Another example is there's the Water Street Cafe in downtown. It has, and I can talk about these locations because they've given me permission to do so. But that place has had stories about a body being dragged across the roof and other activity. We did an investigation there, and we found absolutely nothing. We found some high K2 activity, EMF activity behind a bar, but that was because there was a compressor behind there. So whenever an individual was in the bar serving drinks and he felt somebody was watching him, well, the reason he was because he was sensitive to the compressor that was behind him. We go in trying to figure out why there's been paranormal activity. Now, whether that's paranormal activity that we cannot explain or paranormal activity that we can explain. Could be wiring, could be an old house with wiring going through, and we were at another location. It happened to be a museum called the Haney House, and one area on the floor was just really active, set off our meters, set off everything that we had. We found out later that it was old wiring leading to a lamp that was in the dining room on that particular hallway. So it was something that we could explain. But anybody walking down that hallway would feel very weird, will feel lightheaded if they were sensitive to that type of activity. So if we can go in and help a group or a location settle some fears or settle some aggression or feelings that they're being watched, we can do that. There's the other to people use that for find out paranormal activity about my place because I want to use that in my advertising, and that happens. They want to talk about it. They want to say, "Hey, look, Paul was in here, and Cornerstone Supernatural was in here, and they did their thing, and geez, they got these EVPs, or they got this picture, or they got some SLS happening, and they want that so that they can give that to their customers who are also, hey, is this place haunted?
Yeah, it becomes part of the paratourism industry.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's big.
It certainly is. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that the government just hasn't figured out how to tax yet.
True.
Yeah.
True. And we go into locations and we don't charge for it, so we do it just for the thrill of it, but also to see what's out there.
Plus, you do it to help those people who are really concerned and who have either fears or questions.
And sometimes we cannot explain that. We might be going into a place. It could be a residential, and that person is experiencing some really profound feelings and hearing things and sensing things. And we go in there and we do our thing, and we can't find anything that would promote that.
Right.
And that's hard to tell somebody that, look, we did a paranormal investigation and we couldn't find anything there. And you can come back and do it again. People pay for having their houses cleansed or other things. I mean, it's all part of I think a question that we can't answer. And that's unfortunate because I personally like to go in and keep it clean. Sure. But there's times that you just go, there's nothing here, or there is something here. And how to explain that to an individual that's deathly afraid of what's happening to them?
Do you or your group look, do you see an increase in demonic presence? Or do you think that the demonic aspect of the paranormal supernatural is being used as a way to enhance paratourism?
Personally,
Yeah.
I've never come across something demonic. I have come across negative spirits, where it's feeling dark. Like we were in a church, believe it or not, and there was two spirits there. A little girl that would run across the roof and have all sorts of fun, and yes, we caught the footsteps running across the roof. And yet, in the other end, in the very far furnace area, it was very dark. A dark feeling. You'd go in there and it felt heavy. The air felt heavy, but there was nothing in there that would electrical wise or anything that would equipment wise. We couldn't get anything that would justify that. So, but I've never come across anything like that.
All right, Paul, I hate to cut you off, but I've got to take my news break at the bottom of the hour. And Exo Nation, Paul Busch is our special guest. He is in Vancouver, British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. The name of his group is Cornerstone Supernatural. Their website, cornerstonesupernatural.com. And Paul and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Paul Busch is our guest this hour here in the X Zone. His website is www.cornerstonesupernatural.com, and Paul and his group are in beautiful British Columbia, the city of Vancouver. Paul, during the commercial break, you and I were talking about your very interactive Facebook page. Tell us about that and why, and I love the reason why you gave us why it's so important.
Well, it's Cornerstone Supernatural group on Facebook, and one of the things that you find is people are very, and it's a closed group, and there's a reason for that. A lot of people are afraid to tell their stories, and however, linked from wherever across the world, literally. And so we wanted to have our Facebook page as a safe zone, something that people could tell their stories about what they're experiencing. Maybe it was pictures, maybe it's something their grandmother told them, and get some interaction with the other members of the Facebook group, and then whether it's and again on a positive aspect, because then it gave them reinforcements or a platform for them to talk about and get some feedback on what they're experiencing or why they're experiencing something. And I think it's really helpful for people that are maybe not involved in a paranormal group or know much about paranormal, and because paranormal is more than ghosts, it's cryptoids, it's the fuzzy man in the forest, UFOs, whatever. It just happens that tends to be most of what our focus on is as investigators. But in the Facebook page, everything's fair game, and so they can tell their story, they can feel safe about it, they can get feedback from people that it might react something or have somebody react in another way for something that they remember that happened to them, and then the conversation begins.
How did you and your team members, I believe you've got 18 members on your team, how did you all hone in on your paranormal investigative skills?
Well, we've got individuals in our group that from literally people that haven't done it before, to people that have had over 30 years of experience. So we've got a different mix of individuals that bring different ideas and different techniques to the table. And I think that's real important. You can go out to an investigation and everybody's going to have their own way of doing things. It doesn't have to be a set script of how to do an investigation. Very important. You get different ideas, you get different feedback, you get a different flow to an investigation than if you've had something that I'm going to ask 4 questions, then you're going to ask 4 questions, and so on and so forth. And It's a free for all, so to speak, but controlled.
How do you, when you go to an establishment or a home to do an investigation, how do you do your benchmark testing to see whether or not there are, for example, microwave frequencies, if there are frequencies or there are EMFs? How do you get the basic benchmark before you conduct your investigation looking for anomalies?
Well, when we're going into into a paranormal
Mm-hmm.
investigation, our a couple of the members will go and do a sweep of the place,
Okay.
and that's with K2 meters, with other types of devices, just to see if there's anything that we can justify right off the bat. Others are setting up equipment or getting their places where they want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody can do their own thing and get things ready while a couple members are going around. That helps a lot because we can come back to the conversation and say, okay, in this area we're getting extreme EMFs because of, like you said, a microwave, or we've got
Right.
a lot of restaurant equipment here and it's still active. And because of that, we're going to have to dismiss anything that we get around that particular area. So that's a starting point. We also, we'll come into investigation, and we ground ourselves right at the
Mm-hmm.
very beginning. We'll say, hey, we're here just to find out a little about you. We're not here to harm you in any way, shape, or form. We're just going to ask you some questions and see if we can, we're say Joe's with us, and
Right.
Joe's with us because he wants to learn about you as well.
But if you're going into an investigation and during their grounding process you address a spirit or an entity that is perceived to be there, isn't that tainting the results of the investigation since you're already going in with a preconceived idea that someone or something is there?
We do things maybe a little different. It's important that wherever we investigate,
Mm-hmm.
the individual that led us in there giving us access to there comes along for the investigation. I think that's really, really important. They know that person more, seeing them every day,
Mm-hmm.
than us. They don't know us from a hill of beans. And so they can interact and also feel, okay, well, if this person is with them, then they must be okay for me to ask, to answer some questions or respond accordingly. And I think that also gives some ownership to the person that's with us, to the investigation. We could go into an investigation and say, thank you, lock the door.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be here 3 hours. We're going to do our thing. We'll come back to you and present you with whatever.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all, Paul. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is if you enter, once again, I'll go back to the good old police experience. When you enter an investigation with a preconceived idea of how the crime was committed or whether there is a suspect, that is a tainted investigation. So why wouldn't the same apply here to a paranormal investigation when you go in as investigators? Now, when you say, okay, we're here to do this, that, and the other thing, we're not here to harm you. By virtue of saying that, aren't you then admitting that there is something in this investigation, or that you have already predetermined that there are spirits or unknown entities in that location?
That's a good point. I think that if you can work with the spirits that are there or not, you still got to have some sort of baselines in order to work things through.
Okay.
You can't just, like I said, you've got the two individuals sweeping the room to find out if there's anything that we have to watch for that are normal. And then you throw that aside, but you still have to work with what's in that room.
But you don't know what's in this room, so how can you work with something you have not established that is there?
But you have to assume that something in that. You have to.
Then that's not an investigation. Then that's not an investigation, because you can never assume anything during an investigation. An investigation's results are based on fact and evidence.
here's the policeman coming out at you. If the individual that let you in there has said that he's having these experiences,
Right.
then that's already set the baseline for you to go in and find out, okay, what are these experiences that you're having? Is it something that can be explained, or is it something that's paranormal that we have to do our research in order to get to the bottom of? Maybe it's a squirrel in the attic.
Right.
Right?
Does a person's
Or-
religious beliefs have anything to do with how an investigation is concluded?
No. And I say that for a reason, is because in our group we've got people that believe.
Yeah.
We've got others that don't. So you don't go in there with the thing that there's an almighty that's taking over everything. You have a conversation then as to whether you believe or not. It always brings out the question. It always brings out, is there something that we can focus on to put this in a common ground? We can't just assume that it's not there.
So basically what you do is you leave any religious connotations or religious beliefs at the door.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I personally, I'm an assisting minister. And so for me, I've got lots of different things that I can think about going in, but I don't bring that with me. We've got other individuals that are extremes, like that have that psychic or that medium experience. Others that believe in something other than a higher figure. So no, it's got to be. You got to have a little bit of everything.
All right, Paul, stand by. You and I have to get ready for our final break. And Exonation, if you'd like to contact our guest this hour, Paul Busch, in Vancouver, BC. Maybe you've got a place that's haunted, or you know of a place in BC that is haunted, and these people are looking for help. They're looking for answers. They're looking for someone to give them a hand. Get a hold of Paul and his group. Their website is www.cornerstonesupernatural.com. That's www.cornerstonesupernatural.com. And Paul and I will return on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, the X-Chronicles newspaper, May-June 2019, is available online at xchroniclesnewspaper.com. And to find out about all the radio programming we have for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for the X-Zone TV channel, visit simultv.com. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away now. All right, for all of you paranormal buffs, we have some great shows for you on the X Zone Broadcast Network. We have A Different Perspective with Kevin Randall. We have Paranormal Stakeout with Larry Lawson. Some of the other shows include Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. We have Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman, M.D. And we have Know the Name, Know the Genius in You with Sharon Lynn Wyeth. And let me see, I'll just pull one out of the air. Cal Korff and Cal's Corner. For all the information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. Paul Busch is our guest. He is the gentleman behind Cornerstone Supernatural.com, and they are in Vancouver, British Columbia. And first of all, Paul, thanks so much for coming on the show. Is it harder today to be a paranormal investigator with all the different TV shows that are making the circuit these days, or do you find these shows to be an asset or a hindrance?
That's a good question. I'm going to attack that from two ends.
Okay.
I think that it creates a lot of interest in the paranormal. I think that a lot of people think that there's some solidified answers to what is out there. there is unfortunately some shows that tend to be theatrical,
Right.
and that's just too bad, because there is a lot of good shows out there. Um, whether it makes it easier for, on the other hand, if it makes it easier for paranormal investigators, yes and no. I think that um, there is locations that we have not been able to get into because other paranormal groups have gone in there and maybe damaged something, and
Oh.
created a bad name for paranormal investigators.
Hmm.
And that's too bad, because I think that if anybody can get into a location
Hmm.
and it's fair, then it should be fair for everybody else. Because everybody's got it. Every group has a different perspective on how they do things.
So let me ask you, that brings up an interesting point. What makes your group, and I'm talking about Cornerstone Supernatural, what makes you and your group different from others that are out there?
Well, one of the things we wanted to start with is Cornerstone
Hmm.
being the foundation of a group.
Right.
We wanted it to be strong, and we wanted it to be different. It needs something to build on.
Like the
And
cornerstone of
our
a
group.
church.
Sorry.
Like the
Yes.
cornerstone
Well,
of a
yes.
church.
Then that's exactly where the picture came from, and I hope you show it. But it it did come from a church in Chicago.
Hmm.
That picture of the stone, and again, something was built on it.
Yeah.
Lasted for a long, long time. For us, it's just something that I want to, that people can feel good about, that people can actually come in and work on, and say, I feel good about this particular group, because they're honest.
Hmm.
They're not charging me. They're not here to make me afraid of what I'm having challenges with. They're here to hopefully answer some questions. And I think, and in a lot of the places, and I'm not saying this as a bad thing, is after investigations, these people that are with us, that have let them into our location, they become friends afterwards. And so when you go back, it's more of a family gathering than it is a paranormal investigation. And I think that's really important. People need to be People need to find a comfort in the group that they're working with. And I'm not just saying it's us or anybody else, but they need to feel comfortable. They need to feel that they can tell you a story about what they think is happening,
Hmm.
and not be criticized for it, and not feel bad for telling that story. And I think it's really important to go into investigation, see what's there, talk with the person, have that person come along and actually take part of investigations. I mean, think about yourself. If you've ever been think about back to your first investigation. I mean, that was amazing, right? And it's the same thing for that person coming along, because they get to witness the equipment. They get to witness what we do. They, like I said before, they take ownership of it, and they need to feel all right about the whole thing. They can't just be um, a one and done sort of thing.
But what about the old saying about familiarity breeding contempt? Becoming close friends with someone whose location you're doing an investigation on, doesn't that lead to the possibility of favoring one outcome to another outcome?
Well, and that's what I say. There's always,
Hmm.
you've got to make sure that that individual feels comfortable with, if they want to go with another group, then they can go with
Yeah.
another group. Just because you're there, and just because you're friends with them,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to know but if they find that that other group is pushing, or that other group is doing something, like sharing things on Facebook, or sharing things about your investigation when
Hmm.
they told you definitely not to do it, then that's really, really important. I mean, it's happened.
But isn't it
The other
also
thing,
possible that the person may not like the other group because the other group did not tell them what they wanted to hear?
and that's true.
So
One of the
where do you
things,
draw the line?
well, I think that it's just like getting back to the familiarity thing.
Yeah.
if that spirit or individual that's there knows that person. But as we go in there more and more times, there's increased activity. Why is there increased activity? Because they're getting to know you and how you do things. And we found that. We found that one location that we go into, and it's a historical building, and every time we go in there, we get more and more reaction, more and more interaction with us, and it's becoming more and more fun.
But what about the latest psychological findings and psychological research that is starting to show that the majority of any paranormal activity is being created by the agent or the person who reports the paranormal activity, and is increased by members of any paranormal team that comes in, because they go in with an expectation and they are in fact creating something like PSI.
Yeah, that's true. And unfortunately, there is groups out there that will do that, and that's just too bad. And say what the person wants to hear. You've got to be in your own space or with your investigators. You've got to be comfortable enough to tell the truth, to say that yes, we found this, or no, we didn't. Or you were there and you heard that, but we never caught it as actual physical evidence.
Okay, and this brings me back to what I was saying earlier. You go into a place and you show respect, talking to the spirits, telling the spirits that you're there to help, you're not there to hurt, and so on and so forth. How can you say at the end of an investigation, well, there's nothing here, when at the very beginning of the investigation you acknowledged that there was something there? You're assuming
that there is something there, either that because somebody has said something. So we cannot go into a location and not assume that there's not some sort of paranormal activity there.
But if you go in and the assumption is there that you are, by the very idea that you give this respectful acknowledgement to spirits or ghosts when you start prior to the investigation, how can you legitimately say at the end of the investigation there is nothing here? Aren't you just contradicting yourself?
Well, that's a good point. I think that it's sort of like giving paranormal Miranda rights. That you're there to try to talk to something that's not there. You're hoping that if you do catch something, at least you made that acknowledgement at the beginning. We also at the very end, we said, we say, stay here. Don't come home with us, because we don't want that. If there is something there, we don't want that attachment coming with us.
But wait a sec, hold on here. Now you've got me totally confused. At the beginning, you acknowledge there might be something there. At the end, if there's nothing there, you say there's nothing there. But before you go home, you cleanse yourself just in case there was something there.
Because you don't know if it's your first time in that location, and you haven't caught anything, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have not caught something on your equipment. So when you go home and you go through all of your evidence, and suddenly you're hearing that knock or that bang or that click or something like that you cannot explain, then at least you've protected yourself in that regard.
All right, Paul, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And our guest this hour was Paul Busch from Vancouver, British Columbia. And I'm telling you, X-Zone Nation, I'm a little confused here. You walk into a place, you acknowledge to the spirits that you're there not to harm them, that you're there to help, whatever. You do an investigation, and you come to the end of the investigation, you say, well, there's nothing here. But wait a minute, at the beginning of the investigation, you acknowledge there might be something there, or why would you acknowledge that there is something there? And after you say there's nothing there, what do? You cleanse yourself because there might be something there. www.cornerstonesupernatural.com. And I'd love to hear your comments. Send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, www.xzbn.net is our website for all the X-Zone Broadcast Network shows, and for the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. www.simultv.com. I'm Rob McConnell. I'll be back. Don't go away.